My name is Josiel Gamez, and I am the project manager, researcher, builder, and recorder of my group.
This Modern Marvel presentation will be presented by me, Josiel Gamez, and my Modern Marvel is Agroforestry. I have two pictures that you can see. One of them is trees along with, trees combined with animals, and then trees combined with crops. And I will describe those more in depth later on inside this presentation. The problem is climate change. Climate change has been happening for hundreds of years. It started progressing heavily after the Industrial Revolution and creation of cars, and is slowly killing our planet, and has been for many years. Today, there are a few large efforts being made by countries and companies to reduce or even reverse climate change. We see the effects of climate change every day, and if something isn't done soon, or if people don't combine minds, it will only continue to get worse until it's too late. And there's three pictures that I chose to represent climate change. There's one that represents, wildfires, and there's been an increase, sightings of wildfires. We had especially here in California, where there was just a really big one last year, stretching from Northern California all the way down to Fresno, and then there was one by LA. And so it's getting really bad because, droughts. Talking about droughts, that goes into the middle one, where basically it comes from a really dried out and really hot land, transitioning to how it is now, but it's kind of backwards. You can see how the world can transition into that, that hellhole that the world can become. It can become like another Venus. It's possible. And the third one is glacier melting, which is also another big issue and a big, effect by global warming, by climate change. And the more the glaciers melt, the higher the water rises, and the more cities are going to become underwater, especially like Florida or Madagascar, as a few mentions. My solution is to use agroforestry. Agroforestry is the intentional integration of trees in agriculture and animal systems. This solution can be used as a way of mitigating climate change. A few ways it can do so are: 1. Containing carbon and biomass in soils, which is the soil, which is the ground, and then biomass referring to is branches, the tree trunk, the leaves, things of that sort. Second one is reducing greenhouse gases, because it does suck in greenhouse gases, containing them. And the third one is avoiding emissions through reduced fossil fuels on farms. Not only can agroforestry benefit the planet though, it can also benefit the environment it's placed in. It can increase the health of the soil and increase biodiversity. These two benefits alone can increase farmers' resilience and ability to cope with extreme weather events. Then I have a picture that that describes how the trees protect animals and just the land from wind erosion, because the top of the trees, the canopies, serve as a barrier. You can see that the top of the trees is this biomass, and the soil and is the ground, and you can see how deep the roots penetrate into the ground. And I will explain that later. Compare the tree's roots with the crop's roots. Definitely a big difference there. And you can see that it prevents surface runoff. It reduces emissions. And this one is a graph of land use between crops, agroforestry systems, managed forests, and primary forests. You can see that crops, pastures, and grasslands kind of are the lowest ones. They don't really take that much mass land use. But agroforestry systems, you can see that's a big jump. And Managed forest is, an even bigger jump, and primary forest is basically, the forests that were already here, natural forests. But if we can use or implement agroforestry systems on farmlands more, then this graph can be somewhat near how the managed forest is looking like. The managed forest part of the graph is looking like, meaning that more trees in the world means the more greenhouse gases get sucked in, the better it is for the planet. Solution. This is the continuation of my solution. There are also 3 classifications of agroforestry. One is silvoarable, which is basically trees with crops. Silvopastoral, which is basically trees with animals. And then the third one is agro-silvopastoral, which is trees with crops and animals, a combination. The solution being suggested is a agro-silvopastoral system, which is the one that I'm suggesting, where trees can reduce the greenhouse gases made by animals along with boosting the crops. Trees can boost crops because the roots go deeper into the ground, which reduces waterlogging and runoff. As a result, erosion rates are reduced dramatically. Tree roots also gather hard to reach nutrients, reducing wastage and fertilizing crops when their leaves fall down. The canopy of the trees serve as windbreaks, reducing the evaporation of vegetation, and acts like a shelter for animals, like I kind of summarized in the previous slide. And this one, in the picture I have here, kind of just reinforces, the information that I put. The nutrient pumping through deep root system. In the deep root system, you can see how deep the roots actually are, and the uptake of macro and micronutrients up the roots, and then pumping it through to the top of the tree. And then you can see how when the trees fall, it goes down to the crops, down to the ground, which again fertilizes the crops, making them better and healthier. The essential question: a big contributor of climate change is agriculture itself, with about 23% of the world's total emission, somewhere around there, of human-made greenhouse gases. And within AFL, most emissions come from deforestation and agricultural production. Agriculture is both a driver and victim of climate change. Trees, though, they can take CO2 from the air and store it inside them, like I've been kind of mentioning in the previous slides. When a tree dies, that carbon then gets transferred to the soil. Management and regenerative agroforestry systems prevents the loss of carbon from the soil. The type of tree, soil, climate, and natural resource management are all factors that can decide how much carbon can be contained or is contained. Other potent greenhouse gases like methane and nitrous oxide should also be considered when calculating how effective agroforestry systems are, because those are more serious than carbon dioxide, and methane is much more deadlier, and cows is a big producer of methane. And talk about greenhouse gases, you can see right here I have different greenhouse gases coming from different sources. Nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide from soils, methane from ruminants and digestion and rice paddles, methane and nitrous oxide from manure and storages, carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide from manufacture of fertilizers and other inputs, and carbon dioxide from machinery, transport, and processing, and carbon dioxide from land use change, which when trees are meant to contain carbon, that's what they do. But when we do deforestation, that carbon just gets released back out into the world, and the more deforestation we do, the more carbon gets released, and we're just making it worse by doing that alone. And right here you can see different countries different countries with their agroforestry systems and how well it's containing carbon. So right here you can see that Ghana and Cote de l'Ivoire, how good they are with, you know, containing carbon, combined with, you know, it compares how well agroforestry is compared to deforestation, forest degrading, and fossil fuels in the industry. You know how big each other are. So in those two countries, you can see agroforestry is doing major, you know, is working beautifully, and the deforestation and fossil fuels industry is, you know, is high, but the agroforestry is kind of balancing that out. And the other five countries, you can see agroforestry is not really a big priority there. You can see how the deforestation and fossil fuels in industry like that is a lot higher than agroforestry, and agroforestry is managing a certain, like, you know, to a certain extent of it, but it's just like it's not doing as much as it can. It's like the deforestation, the forest degrading, and the fossil fuels are just overwhelming the trees that are being placed. So it's just like they can be doing better, but they're not doing as much as they should. This is a clip of that. This is just clip number 1.
They contribute to climate change mitigation by sequestering carbon and support adaptation. For example, by reducing heat stress for crops, or by diversifying smallholder incomes.
That one kind of reinforces what I've been saying, you know, just kind of in a more visual form. This is clip number 2.
Cooperative humans, if we choose to be that way, we can actually manage forests in a way that they can continue to be healthy and productive over much longer periods of time.
In that clip, you can see how she talks about the longevity of forests and how if we take care of it and take care of agroforestry systems, we can just prolong forestry and trees and things of that sort. This is the third and final clip.
To droughts and floods, we see if you look and walk into a forest, whether it's a normal year, a dry year, or a wet year, it often appears pretty much the same. Versus we look at open land or tilled land or something like that, and it can be really dramatically different. So forests moderate the climate, and so they're going to help us in our agricultural.
In that clip, he kind of just explains the difference between trees on, you know, land with trees on it, and how the land is when that is compared to a land with no trees. You can see that, you know, the land with no trees is kind of drier, more erosion. The soil is not that healthy, but the land with trees is more healthier, is more preferable for farmland. This is the last slide of my presentation, and I'm just gonna go over some struggles and failures from, you know, just of the whole Modern Marvel project. So a big one is figuring out how to add clips from YouTube videos. It took me very long to kind of figure that out and add it to the slide. Still don't know if I was doing it correctly, because this is my first time doing something like that, but yes, that was definitely a bit obstacle that took me a while to do so. Remembering measurements for my build. As you will see later when I show my journey of how, you know, from the different stages, I was having a really hard time kind of remembering like the measurements. Like I would say one measurement out loud, but then I would try to go back to cut it out, but then I would forget, and then I'm like half an inch off, and that would kind of, you know, irritate me, become just like, and then I have to cut out a different piece, you know, which is, you know, like a waste of resources. And another one that popped up is figure out how to record everything. I did my best recording all this, and I recorded most things by screen recording on my phone, or just self-recording the build or whatever else needs to be self-recorded, because I couldn't really prop up my device and record that way. I feel like it wasn't really that conventional, it wasn't really that effective. But a big success was definitely my build, as everyone will see later on inside this video, because it came out very close to how I envisioned it, and I am very proud to show off how the different stages of my build and how it is. And I will transition into that. You guys will see my journey of building and the materials used and all that. Okay, so this is my blueprint of how I want things to go. So the key's right there. So I basically want 2 rows of dirt with like seeds scattered about. This is just it's rough, so I just want 2 rows of dirt, seeds scattered about, and right next to it you can see that there's trees next to the dirt. And then that's one section. The other section is gonna be trees scattered about with animals scattered in and close to the trees and everything like that. And I'm thinking about adding like mixtures of brown and green paper to make it more realistic, I would say. But this is basically just the overall like idea of how I want it to go. Okay, so the materials I'm gonna use for the prototype is that I'm gonna cut out, currently I'm cutting out a strip of black piece of paper, and I'm gonna make it thinner to fit within this piece of paper that I cut out. It's gonna fit into this, what will represent like a trench, because this represents the dirt like I had here in the blueprint, and the blacker, the darker paper represents the little trench. And then I'm gonna hole punch little holes out of the yellow piece of paper, and I'm gonna all do it on this small piece of foam real quick. And I'm gonna probably use these trees and glue them onto there for the trees. And then for animals, I'm just gonna use cotton balls. It's not really animals, but it represents sheep, so kind of animal, just to represent the animal. But no, those are the materials I'm gonna use. Okay, so I have finished my prototype, and this is what it looks like so far. If I can pick it up. So again, these are crops with dirt, with the black representing trenches, and then the hole punched yellow paper for seeds, the plaster trees to represent trees, and then cotton balls to represent sheep or animals in general. The other materials that I used to glue this all in place is crazy glue and then Elmer's glue. That's all I use to like glue it down. Okay, so I managed to make a digital model of my modern marvel, and I used the game Minecraft to create this model. I made this model off of my PlayStation 4, so these are pictures off of my TV since I couldn't really email it to myself, which is what I was trying to do off the console. So I just decided to take pictures of of different angles. Okay, so this is the bird's eye view of the build, the digital build. You can see different kind of trees, you can see the crops, you can see the water sources to irrigate the crops, you can see hay bales and then animals running around, and fences that kind of block it in some form, block everything in. This is a front view, and you can kind of see the fences better. You can see the different kind of trees, the height of the trees, the animals, and also the crops better. Yeah, I can zoom in, see You can see everything better like that. This is a side view of my build, and you can basically see, you know, again, different kind of trees. Also, you can see the grass and the crops and the fences. This is a back view, I believe. You can see I use fences and leads, which is a form of trying to get the animals to stay in one place, because if I didn't do that, then they would have ran around. I didn't want that, so I had to keep them in place with a fence. But you can see the hay bales, the crops, and all these builds, all these pictures, you can see the trees, the crops, the fences, and the animals in just different ways. This is another view, and this one's a side view. And this one you can see something different. You can see chickens, you can see horses, pigs, cows, the grass, the trees in different formations, and also you can see a bush. Well, trying to make a bush. That's supposed to be a bush. This one is kind of like an angled view from up above. You can see the horses, and it's more close up, so you can see the inside of the animal area. And then this is a view from the crop area, so you can see the crops better, the irrigation system, the hay bales, the trees, and that sort. This is an angle from within the animal area, and you can see the rabbits, chickens, them being tied down to a post so they can't go anywhere. Leashing is a better word to say. You can see grass and all that. And this is my completed digital build. Alright, I am in the final stage of building. So the materials I'm gonna use for the final build is a combination of Fruity Pebbles and oatmeal, oat grains, whatever you call this, for like seeds. And then I'm going to use a combination of plants that I cut off from hedges in my front yard and from my kumquat tree, and then these are from plants inside the house. Well, fake plants, these are fake. Then for the dirt, I'm going to use poppy seeds and just spread it out. And then I'm going to use Elmer's glue to, you know, stick everything together. And I use a combination of brown paper and green paper, and then I cut out little pieces of foam to make elevation, make it look higher so it won't be completely flat. And and animals, I'm gonna use all these animals, well, some of it, and then also these fences. So that is the materials I'm going to use for this build. Okay, so this is my completed final build, finally. So what I did here is the dirt, and as I said, with the materials I used the oatmeal and the Fruity Pebbles to create different kind of seeds. I planted the different kind of tree branches to represent trees. These are from hedges, and they don't really want to stand up straight. These are from my kumquat tree, and these are from, well, a fake plant in my house. In the back by the animal section, there's different kind of animals. There's a pig, there's a bull, there's a chicken, a rooster. Over here there's a horse, there's a rabbit, there's a geese, and there's a baby goat in the back. And then I put fences to kind of make it look more like a farmland. But overall, this is my completed build.